Good evening, everybody. Nice to be here. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. My name's Aidan Kearney. I'm the founder of Turtleboy Daily News, and I'm the communist's worst nightmare because I have not only defeated cancel culture, I've weaponized it against them, and I've completely taken that power away from them, the one power they have, the power to shut you up. First of all, I just want to say it's great to be in Lexington. This is one of my favorite towns to come to in Massachusetts, even though it's ironically controlled by communists today. But it is the birthplace of the first anti-cancel culture movement. And that is when a bunch of regular guys in a tavern didn't want to be canceled by the most powerful empire that ever existed in the history of mankind, the British Empire. And the British wanted to cancel them by taking away their liberty, their independence, their farms, their pigs, their family, and their guns. And they simply wouldn't have it anymore. Now, it would have been a lot easier for people back then, the people of Lexington, to just say, you know what, it's not worth it. I'm just gonna live my life. I can survive without my pigs. I don't really need a gun. I don't really need to say these things. I'd like to read this pamphlet called Common Sense by Thomas Paine, but that's dangerous literature. And I really, is it really worth it? Do I want to die for this? And a bunch of young men said, yes, I do want to die. And the women of Lexington said, go off and fight. Well, we care for your homes, and you do your part because we're part of something bigger here. Because it's easy to give in to cancel culture. It's easy to give in and say, you know what? I don't want to lose my job over this. I don't want to lose my business over this. Maybe I won't say that thing. Maybe I won't share this opinion about the climax, as we have to call it, unfortunately, because if we say the V word on YouTube, they'll take that away from us too. If you have the wrong opinions on any of that stuff, they'll try to silence you. And they'll create monopolies. Yeah, just shut up and drink the British tea. You don't need Dutch tea. What do you want to drink Dutch tea for? Just shut up and drink our monopolistic British tea over here, and you'll like it, and you'll live, and you'll be okay. Do you really want to die for Dutch tea? Do you want it that badly? And they said, it's not about the tea. It's not about this stuff. It's about the fact that if you could take that away from me, what else can you take away from me? I'm a human being, and I have God-given rights to speak, to say what's on my mind, and to be free. And that is why I love being in Lexington. I get kind of chills just driving through here and thinking about the history that happened in this town and what they tried to do, and the people of this town. They just weren't having it anymore. So, years ago, I used to be a public school teacher. I taught 11th grade American history in a town called Dudley at a high school called Shepherd Hill. I think I taught it pretty well. This was back before people were pushing critical race theory in school and, drag queen story hour and stuff like that. So I taught there for 9 years. And I had a pretty good record there. However, I taught them about history. And this was, like, the leftists like to say that, well, we're not teaching about the negative aspects of American history in school. That's why we need critical race theory. They're lying when they say that. We are teaching the negative aspects of American history. We teach it every single day. We teach about slavery. But we also teach that this country, although it was founded and allowed slavery, it also intentionally set up a system, a democratic system, where people could eliminate slavery, where the people could vote on getting rid of it. And they did. And a white president elected by white people, and then 300,000 young white boys died so that slavery would be abolished. And then what a lot of people don't know is that for the first time in American history, black people started getting elected in this country. Not in the North, in the South. Why was that? Because the Republicans took over every state government with bayonets and forced their will upon the states. And they said, if you're a Confederate Democrat and you seceded from the Union, you can't vote. You're going to have to, we need to show you're loyal to this country. Black people, you can vote. And they did. And we had black senators and black representatives for the first time in American history. That ended in 1877 with the election of 1876, when a handshake decided that Rutherford B. Hayes would be president, and in return, he would end military reconstruction in the South. This was the worst thing that ever happened to black people in the South in American history. For the next 90 years, they were at the will of racist Democrat-controlled state legislatures.
Correct.
And as a result, they were able to institute Jim Crow and all types of systems that kept them down and made sure that they never had the one thing that Democrats fear the most: when you want to take power from them. Nothing freaks them out more than that. And that is why they didn't let them vote. They didn't let them go to the same schools. They didn't let them become educated, because then they could possibly take over the state government, because they represented a significant percentage of the population in the southern states. And ultimately, this did end 90 years later, but only after young black people in colleges were unwilling to be canceled. When people like John Lewis, although he changed later on in life, but when in their younger days, they said, you know what, I'm not going to be canceled. Yeah, I could eat at this lunch counter over here, but I really want to eat at that one. You know, I could go to this restaurant over here, but I really want to go to that one. And it's not about the food, I'll be filled either way. It's about the fact that you're telling me I can't. And I'm an American citizen, and I can go wherever I want. And if I have to get beaten, if I have to drop out of college, if I have to spend my summer in a Mississippi sweaty jail doing hard labor, then that's what I have to do. And they were unwilling to be canceled. Now, I could easily do the same thing. A lot of people could do the same thing. You could just give up. But at some point, you have to realize that if you're going to give up on this one thing, they're just going to keep taking. And they're going to keep taking, and they're going to keep taking. And you can't give in to them, because they will never stop. The long-term consequences of this have been horrible, horrible for black people in this country. And it was started by Democrats.
That's right.
And their solution to this is not a long-term solution. This will take, unfortunately, centuries. And it's a slow process. But the way to eventually have equality is just to create a system in which there's equal opportunity for everyone. That's not what they want to do. They want to take a Band-Aid of affirmative action and telling white kids that you should feel sorry, you should feel bad about the way you're born, because the people who came before you who looked like you, they were bad. And they are the reason that we don't have true equality in this country today. And you need to do something about that. But that's not the way. That just creates more division. That creates more anger, racial resentment, and it's not the way to freedom. I taught kids about forced Japanese internment. That was another ugly part of American history that they claim we don't teach. Those people, American citizens, had their homes, their businesses taken from them. Why? Because they were deemed to be dangerous by the government. And during wartime, the government in this country's history has no problem using that to seize your liberties. Innocent people had their lives stolen from them, and they were put into camps because they were deemed to be dangerous, but they weren't. And we look back on that now and we say, wait a minute. That was a mistake. Why did we allow that to happen? That was dumb. Let us never do that again. And then 6 months ago, was it? I hear the President of the United States get on the television and blame half the country for this pandemic and tell you that it's your fault. You didn't get the climax. And then you didn't get the booster. And then you didn't get the next booster. So you killed 900,000 people, you dangerous idiot. So now we're going to take away your rights and your liberties, and you're going to get this thing, and so are your kids, and you're going to like it because Dr. Fauci said you have to get it. And eventually people said no. I was one of those people that was like, maybe I'll get it. Sure, if you come to my house, I'm not going to wait in line to do it. I'm not going to do it. But I'm not afraid of the needle, whatever. I'll go and do it. The second I heard the President of the United States lecture me about that, I said, no freaking way will I ever comply with this administration. Because if you give into this, what else are you going to give into? Or how about during World War I? Little known case, Schenck versus the United States. A socialist by the name of Schenck was passing out anti-war pamphlets saying, don't fight this war. This is a capitalist war. We can't, the poor are going to fight it and the rich are going to do well. And there was a lot of truth to that. And he was arrested because this violated the Sedition Act. Because his speech was, you guessed it, dangerous. It was hate speech. It could get somebody hurt if you said it too much. And you should not be allowed to say those things. And he brought his case all the way to the Supreme Court. And he lost in a decision in which Oliver Wendell Holmes, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, gave a famous opinion in which he said that yelling fire in a crowded theater and causing a panic would not be considered free speech, essentially. That decision has since been overturned, and a lot of people don't know that because I hear it all the time. I hear it every single time a leftist wants to cancel you on Facebook or because you have the wrong opinion about the climax. Your speech is dangerous, right? You can't yell crowded in a fire theater. Actually, you can. Actually, you can, because that's how free speech works. And if there's no fire, then no one's gonna get up and run. People in this country have a right to free will. They have the right to use their brains. They have a right to look around them and realize, wait a minute, this place isn't on fire. That guy's a moron. I'm not listening to him. So that is unfortunately something that we have not learned in American history because history has a tendency to repeat itself. Conservatives have lost the culture because we've given in too much. We didn't fight these things. Right. In the last, 40, 50 years, every time we get power, what do? We cut the capital gains tax. Ooh, whip-de-doo, okay? And we feel, like, yes, we believe in small government. Yeah, we're against that. Well, guess what? That is a self-defeating philosophy. Democrats, when they take power, what do they do with it? They use it. They use it on you. And we need to start imposing our values. If our values are laissez-faire, don't do anything, just let people be free, okay, that's not going to help us. We need active conservatism. We need what people like. It's not enough to just say that businesses cannot mandate the climax, right? That's not enough. We have to outlaw everybody from doing it.
Does everyone understand you using that as a euphemism?
So when I say the climax, that is a euphemism for the V word. 𝗧𝘂𝗍𝗍𝗍, because if you say that too much on YouTube, goodbye. You lose your channel, okay? If you have the wrong opinions. We got demonetized for that. I'm not even kidding. Yeah. So that's why we use the climax. I'm just so used to that word at this point. So anytime the government doesn't like your speech and calls it dangerous, it's not really dangerous. It's just dangerous to their stranglehold on power. That's what that really means. For instance, Merrick Garland, over the summer we saw a bunch of parents, like myself, who has young children attending schools, that didn't want to wear masks in school because there's no reason for it, and it's stupid and it defies every piece of science we've ever seen. And so we went up and we protested, and this phenomenon took place across the country, and guess what? They hated that. They hated that because they're like, citizens rising up against the government, we can't have that. We can't have people speaking their minds and wanting to be free and be unwilling to be canceled. No. We need to silence these people as much as possible. So what did the Attorney General do? He weaponized the FBI, called innocent people domestic terrorists, started watching you, put you on lists because that's just what they do now. Meanwhile, the Vice President of the United States is bailing BLM rioters and looters out of jail, and Viking Man is sitting in a prison for the next 4 years because he walked through some open doors and sat in a seat he wasn't supposed to sit in. That's what they do to you. Make no mistake about it. These are not just people the communists are not people that we just agree to disagree with. They are people who want to destroy you. They want to hurt you. They want your kids not to be welcomed in polite society. They don't want them to be able to play on the soccer teams unless they get this in their body that everybody else does. They want you to not be able to say things in public. They want you to bow to them. And if you don't, they honestly believe that you should go to jail for this. They truly, truly believe that. Whereas our team, when we look at them, we're like, well, we'll just agree to disagree. We can be friendly. Never has this been more apparent than with the Brett Kavanaugh travesty from 4 years ago. I've never been so disgusted in anything in my entire life than what happened to that man. It wasn't enough to just point out his judicial record. We don't like that. No. They had to bring up a Democratic activist who 36 years later remembered something happened to her, made up the whole story. All of her witnesses said they were lies. She couldn't remember where it was, when it was, nothing. And we were all told to just go along with the charade and believe this woman because we must believe women. Unless that woman's name is Tara Reid and she's accusing Joe Biden of something, in which case she is a Russian asset and she must be silenced. And they destroyed that man. And they did it in front of his children. And I'll never forget that. But that was kind of the first time I saw some fight back amongst conservatives. They're like, no. Even Lindsey freaking Graham fought back. And he never fights back on anything. So a couple months after that, we saw a bunch of young boys from Covington, Kentucky, at the March for Life in Washington, D.C., who had the audacity to stand in place and smile while a grown man, an activist, a fake war hero with the drum, started banging it in their faces and yelling at them, and they stood there and they smiled and they did what they were supposed to do. And what did they get in return for that? They were doxxed, harassed, threatened. The school had to shut down. Grown adults at CNN were tweeting faces of 15-year-olds saying, "I'd like to punch that little kid in the face." That's what they think of you. They won't just do that to you. They will do that to children. These are not people that you should treat with any sort of dignity or respect or civility. I keep hearing about civility, right? I'm civil with civil people. That's who I am. If you are a Democrat and you want to disagree with me about something, I have Democrat friends, and we can converse with things. My problem is when you want to shut me up, when you want to take away my liberties and you want to take away my rights, that's when we're no longer going to be civil. That's when I'm going to treat you exactly how you treated me. You know, they miss the old days when we just kind of like, you know, wanted the capital gains tax gone and stuff like that. But now they've looked around and they've seen, oh, wait, they're kind of winning again, aren't they? They're winning. Why? Because they're no longer talking about the things that we want them to talk about. They want the Republicans to be the party of George Bush, of nation building and endless wars and cutting taxes, and that's it, right? But we're not that party anymore because we've seen what they've done to our culture. The culture is the most important issues now because it's affecting our children, right? And we're seeing, for instance, Glenn Youngkin in Virginia. That is a blue plus 10 state. There's no reason for a Democrat ever to lose the state of Virginia. They have two Democratic senators who win easily every time. They control both chambers of the House of the legislature, and they control the governorship for years. And then Glenn Youngkin comes around with his vest. And what does he talk about? Critical race theory and the schools, parental rights in schools, to not have it. That is a popular issue. That can attract moderate Democrats. That's what people want to hear. That's what mobilizes them, and that's why they feared him, and they tried to smear him. And at the last day, they embarrassed themselves by bringing out 5 tools and tiki torches who pretended they were with his campaign because they were desperate and they knew they were going to lose, and they did lose. And then there's, of course, my guy, Ron DeSantis, who I believe should be our nominee for president in 2024. Ron DeSantis, I love Donald Trump. I loved what he did. I voted for him. If he's the Republican nominee, I'll vote for him again, okay? But Ron DeSantis does everything that Donald Trump said he was going to do. He just goes out and does it. He does whatever he wants. Florida has become the laboratory for freedom in the last 4 or 5 years. It is a state that used to be a toss-up. Democrats would often win it. You know, they would have sometimes one Republican senator and one Democrat, or a Democratic governor, and I believe Obama won that state twice. Oh, that state's red. And it's getting redder by the day, and so is Tennessee. And so are other states where freedom reigns. And that's what people have had it. I can't tell you, I've had friends that have left Massachusetts and stuff because for the first time in our lives, it's actually unbearable. It's like you can't just, the schools aren't open. What am I going to do? The schools aren't open. Like, what? I can't get a sitter. What am I going to do? You know, they literally want to control our lives, and so people are leaving. And Florida, and Ron DeSantis down there, what I mean by like active conservatism, is it's not enough to just say, well, businesses are free, right? Like Kristi Noem in South Dakota said this. Well, businesses are free. If you want to install a mandate for the climax, then do it, right? That's free. That's laissez-faire. That type of conservatism is dead. We need active conservatism. We need people who will say, I control the government now, and I'm not going to allow you to put a mandate in. I'm not going to allow your school district to mask our children. I'm not going to let that happen at all. When I see kids wearing masks behind me, I'm going to tell them, take the masks off. You look ridiculous. That's what actual leadership looks like. And that's why I love Donald Trump, but I truly believe that Ron DeSantis is just, the Democrats are weak. He's a likable guy, and DeSantis is my guy, but again, I'd vote for whoever the Republican is because I don't vote for communists, so that's just me. So a little bit about myself. Like I said, I was a public school teacher for many years. And I started a blog called aidanfromworcester.com. Around 2013, I shared my opinions on matters of public interest. And sometimes these opinions were controversial. And I ended up getting a 5-day unpaid suspension because some parents called up and complained that they didn't agree with the things I was saying in my blog. And I realized at that point, they're trying to terminate me here, and they're just building a case. And even the union couldn't save you or anything like that because they're doing it by the book and they've got lawyers. And if they want to get rid of you, they can try to get rid of you. So I'm like, I can't do this thing anymore. If I want to share my opinions on the internet, I have to be anonymous. Thus the birthplace of Turtleboy Sports. I'm from Worcester, Massachusetts. We have a statue downtown of a boy who looks like he is defiling a turtle. He's actually riding it, contrary to popular urban legend. He's actually riding that turtle, not deflowering it. And it's a funny statue. When people come to Worcester, they always take pictures with it. So I'm like, I'm going to call my blog Turtleboy Sports, because I used to talk about sports back then. It's since been named Turtleboy Daily News. And on Turtleboy, I started writing anonymously. And the blog grew. Why? Because I talked about common sense things. I talked about things like that Glenn Youngkin talked about and that Ron DeSantis talked about, right? Common sense things, and I could attract traditionally blue people who were just like, like I believe in, healthcare, but I don't believe in all this other crazy stuff about, drag queen story hour and stuff like that. That's a little too much for me. And I attracted that crowd. And that's what we could start attracting too, by going after the cultural issues. So the blog became more popular, and I started writing about more and more matters of public interest. And then one weekend I went in October, I went to Buffalo to watch the Patriots destroy the Buffalo Bills like we used to do. I don't know if our kids aren't going to grow up. Probably the opposite's going to happen, but that's a different story. And we go up there, and I love Buffalo because the fans there, even though their team stunk for so many years, they'd still go to the games. It's the only team they have in town. And they hate the Patriots because we just kill them. The hatred they have for us is just, I love it. I feed off of it. And you go up there and they would just give you the business. Political correctness never went to that city. It's gone all over the country. It skipped right over Buffalo. They call you things there that, would get you blacklisted for life in Lexington. You could never show your face again. And they just call it to your face. Stuff about Tom Brady urinating as he sits down, stuff like that. That would probably be insensitive around here. But they would say that to you, and I loved it. And I would videotape them acting like this. And then I went home and I wrote a blog about it. And like, Buffalo fans, bunch of savages acting crazy up there. Check out these videos, blah, 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 blah. Well, it went viral in Buffalo, actually, the blog did. And everyone there is like, who's this guy? Who's this New England guy who came up here and is disrespecting our city and calling our fans savages? We need to find out who this guy is. And they did. Somebody out there, I don't even know how he did it, but he did it. And he found out who I was. And he had his own little blog called Buffalo Bruises, and he put out a little story about me. He wasn't even at the game, but he made up this ridiculous story about me sexually harassing the girl behind me in front of all these people, like things that would have got you arrested. It was patently absurd, but it didn't matter because people, when they want to cancel you, the truth doesn't really matter.
Right.
And so they put my name, my address, where I worked at Shepherd Hill, the contact information on there, and they published it, I believe it was on a Sunday morning. I went to school Monday, just waiting to get called down to the office, nervous the whole day. I'm getting CC'd on emails from Buffalo fans telling me, we're going to come there, we're going to get you, threatening me, stuff like that. Like, it was crazy. And nothing happened on Monday. Tuesday, day goes by, whatever. Last period of the day comes, bell rings. I see a bunch of kids walking around the hallway with a printout of the Buffalo Bruises blog. And I'm like, yep. So it finally happened. And I get a Dudley police officer came up to my classroom. He's like, you might want to come downstairs to the office. I get down there, the union's there, the superintendent, the principal, all these people. They asked me, are you okay? We've been getting all these threats and stuff. They pretended like they cared about me. And they were like, okay, we're going to put you on paid leave and take a little time off. That's code for we are going to talk to our lawyers and figure out a way to try to fire you if you can. Unfortunately, they couldn't do that without compensation. And they offered me a deal. They said, we're going to give you a full year's salary to walk away, resign, and we will give you letters of recommendation, all this nice little package. And this was my Lexington 1775 moment. I had a couple options. I could either fight it, right, and say, no, I want this job, and I'd be walking on thin ice for the rest of my life. I would have to be careful about every single thing that I said from here on forward, for the purpose of maybe I make 70 grand one day. You know, I'll have healthcare. I'll be middle class, but you know, it'll be safe. It was the much safer route to take. Just like the people in Lexington, the much safer route for them was to just shut up and drink the Dutch tea, right? Who cares about your pig? You'll be fine without a pig. Well, I decided that I'm going to do the most American thing possible. I am going to quit my job, and I am going to start my own business, and I'm going to be an entrepreneur. And I've never done that before, and I was scared to do it, and I was nervous, and I didn't know what the future held. We were pregnant with my first child, and I'm like, what's going to happen to me? But I did it. And so I started to, I incorporated the company right away, the blog right away, and I started going around, and I used to get 5,000 to 10,000 people a day on the site. And I would just like, you know, that's valuable. That's somewhat valuable space for advertisers. So I would just go knocking on doors around Worcester and say, you know, you interested in advertising on the blog? Have you heard of it before? And a lot of them had at this point. It was popular around Worcester. And I'm like, yeah, a couple $100 a month. You get 15, 20 people doing that. You can buy a living and be okay. And maybe it'll grow, maybe it won't. And it worked for a bit. Then cancel culture kicked in. The boycott started. People who didn't like my opinion. This is right around the time when Michael Brown protests were happening. And they were blockading highways on I-93 and stuff like that. And you could probably guess my opinion on those things. I wasn't too fond of it, and I shared my thoughts on these people, which I think is a common sense opinion. Democrats don't want the highway blocked either. Democrats have places to go too. So that was common sense stuff, and it caught on, and people liked it. But a small minority of communists didn't like it, and they began to boycott. And when I say boycott, it's not an actual boycott. Boycotts are what the colonists did with the Stamp Act. They're like, we just won't use stamps, right? That's a boycott. Boycotts today are pick up the phone, call them up. Yeah, hello, Smokestack Barbecue? Do you know that you have an advertising on a racist, white supremacist website? You need to get off there. We're going to send a mob to you and give you 1-star reviews on Google and do this to you, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, whoa, even though we're getting referrals from this guy, we're getting all these phone calls too. I don't need this. You know, I'm running a business here. I don't have time to answer all these phone calls. And they were just like, we love you, Aidan, but we can't, I can't do it anymore. The phones won't stop ringing around here. And so I realized that was no longer an option. So I used something called Google AdSense, in which I insert a code and the ads magically appear on the site and I get a cut of it. And life was good. And I was doing pretty well until I realized that they can contact Google and they can just report you that way for hate speech. And then I got canceled by Google AdSense and I could no longer monetize them. So I built a whole new website called TB Daily News. I was a little bit more careful with my language. I wanted to rebrand anyway. And I used that as an opportunity because a lot of people on that use cancel culture as an opportunity. Like you get one door closes, another one opens. Think of a way to keep going and keep saying because people want you to. And there was an army behind me. Nobody wanted me to quit. And I realized that in this day and age, that the only way conservative speech can continue is conservatives have to support it with money, with finances, right? Like, so for instance, Steven Crowder has a thing, he can't monetize his YouTube channel anymore. So he has something called Mug Club. You pay $70 a year, you get a mug, you get access, you get a little more perks, you get stuff that other people don't get. So I built something called Turtle Club, in which you go to my website, I hired a web developer, you get ad-free on the website, you get access to one extra live stream a week that nobody else gets. You get a t-shirt, $15 a month, and as a result, I don't need advertisers anymore because I am financed by followers, and it's great, and people buy t-shirts, and they donate when they can because people, when they value what you do and they appreciate what you do, they're willing to spend money on it because that's the only way to defeat cancel culture, and it works. And it works. And that's why I have a number of websites where I join their premium stuff like that. Like the Daily Wire, you know, they lost Harry's razors about a year ago. So what did they do? This week they literally built their own razor company, and it's badass. And like that's how you do it. We need a separate conservative eco-universe. Like with people like Mike Lindell, who just do not care if they get phone calls. And they just like, oh yeah? You don't cancel me, I cancel you, communist. And that's the way you have to be with these people. You got to fight back. You got to not take their crap. Yeah. As you mentioned before, I also had a Facebook page. Got up to about 112,000 followers in 2017. I was adding close to 2,000 or 3,000 people a week. I was going to get up to 1 million by the year 2020 if the projections continued. Then one day, I wrote about a Black Lives Matter activist from Cambridge who was forcing white women to pay her reparations. Long story, her name's 𝗕𝗵𝗲 𝗂𝗵, we call her. And I wrote about her, and she sent a mob to mass report my page, and the bots or whoever at Facebook took it down. There's nothing you can do. You can't call them back, nothing. I've created over 50 Facebook pages since then, all taken down. Magically, that ended the second Joe Biden became president. I have had no problems with Facebook since Joe Biden became president. Why? Because they blamed Donald Trump's election on free speech, right? People aren't using Facebook to share opinions led to Donald Trump getting elected to president. So we need to silence those opinions. A month before the election, what did they do to the Hunter Biden laptop story? They said, you can't post it on social media or you're out of here. You're out of here. Well, now that Joe Biden won, you can share it all you want. Problem solved. They got exactly what they wanted. The same way the British weaponized the British East India Tea Company, the communists today weaponize the social media companies, because those have become the public square, and that is where people talk. Trump, the freaking president of the United States, I still can't believe it, is banned from Twitter. Putin's allowed on there. Right? He can literally be like, hey, we're going to invade Ukraine tomorrow. Okay, we're going to go to this city, we're going to go to Kiev, then we're going to bomb this. He can write that all on Twitter. Trump can't write that your election was rigged on there, or else that's dangerous. That's dangerous speech. We need to ban them on there. So I've been getting banned on social media before any of this was cool, long before Trump lost his, and I saw this coming, and I was screaming from the top of my lungs about it, and conservatives didn't really seem interested. They seem interested now that it's affected so many other people. The freaking Babylon Bee was kicked off of Twitter yesterday. A satire website for naming Rachel Levine Man of the Year, because she was named Woman of the Year, and other things. So, like I said, I've also been sued by another number of people. That's the way they've tried to cancel me. I think I'm currently being sued by 3 or 4 people, including an activist from Brockton, a BLM guy, who, you know, I consider the lawsuits, that's a form of cancellation. You're trying to silence me. So what do? I'm like, I could settle. He offered me $600, right? Walk away. And I'm like, this is going to cost me a lot more than $600 in legal fees. So I could just drink the tea, right? I could just give it to him, whatever. But then I would be censoring myself. Then I would be giving in. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go and I'm going to tell people about this. And people are going to help and they're going to donate and they're going to do what they can. And because they want to see me beat this guy. I'm their fighter. And they did. And we're going to fight this guy. And so I start looking into his past, and I published a blog about it. You can check it out on tvdailynews.com today. I went all in his past, and I found out that when he was 35, he had sex with a 15-year-old girl. And oops, that would not have come out if you didn't sue me, Tony. So now the whole world knows about that. Nice going. So that's what I do. You don't cancel me. I cancel you. Fight back. They don't expect it. They don't like it. They expect you to shut up and just drink the tea and be quiet and take it. But you have to have that fighting spirit. This last week, you might have seen it in the news, a woman by the name of Monica Canning Grant. She was a woman that I've been writing about for 2 years. She's a ratchet from Roxbury who managed to start a nonprofit called Violence in Boston. And she would just call everyone who didn't like her a racist. Basically, that was her business model. Just give me money. You don't want to give me money, you're racist. Give me money. And she would solicit funds that way. And she kind of became like the de facto BLM voice. She led a march for George Floyd and all that stuff. But she's a vile person. And in July of 2020, she put out a video calling my friend Rayla Campbell, who was running at the time against.
Here a couple months
ago. Oh, was she? Great lady. Love Rayla. And Rayla was running against Ayanna Pressley for Congress. So obviously she's a black woman, but her husband's white. She broke a cardinal sin. Interracial marriage. They didn't like that. And so communists don't like race mixing. Big no-no in their world. And so Monica puts out this video about Rayla and says that she was going to blow her effing head off. Amongst other things, accusing her of doing sexual things to her husband for a good credit score, as if a black woman can't get a good credit score without doing sexual things to a white guy. It was unbelievably racist, violent, etc. And what did the Boston Globe do? 2 months later, they named her Bostonian of the Year. What did our Boston Celtics do? They named her a hero among us. What did the Boston Bruins do? They gave her a big flag and paid her to wave in front of the State House. What did the New England Patriots do? Well, 𝗵𝗡𝗆 puts out a video saying, come and donate to Violence in Boston. They're doing great things down there. So what did we do? We showed up at Violence in Boston and held a protest. That's the first time I met Rayla. We protested outside there. They threatened us. We had to have the police come. They claimed to have guns. We got out of there. It was kind of dangerous when you think about it. And then we showed up 3 weeks later at the Boston Police Department, and we did the same thing. Wherever Monica was going, we were going. Again, you don't cancel us, we cancel you. And she tried her old tricks of, you're a racist, you're a white supremacist, because that's the only trick they got in the bag. And once you let the communists know that that tactic is no longer effective, that you don't care, that it bounces off of you like nothing, then you take the power away from them. Right. And you cannot be, the correct answer to you're a racist isn't, no I'm not, or I hear this all the time, no I'm not, I have a black friend, right? I can't be racist, my brother-in-law is black, what are you talking about? Wrong answer. Wrong answer. The answer to you're a racist is, well, you're a pedophile.
That's right.
Right? What are you? You gross, why are you touching kids? You pervert. They try it sometime. They don't know what to do. It's like a deer caught in the headlights. I wasn't expecting that. You're supposed to deny it. And then I'm supposed to, like, what the hell? That's how this game works. You got to use it against them. You got to weaponize it. You got to let them know that the new right is not the old right.
Come on.
This is what Donald Trump brought us. He brought us a fighting spirit. He's getting kind of old, but he brought us MAGA. The MAGA spirit lives on, that we are no longer going to be pushed around by these people. We are going to become active in our town governments. We are going to go to school committee meetings. We are going to demand to know what is being taught to our children in the classrooms. You do not own our children. We do. And we are going to take you down. And I just kept going on with Monica, and I could have given up with her, right? But I didn't. And I just kept writing about it, And what happened to Monica? You might have seen it on the news. She was arrested, charged with 18 felonies, and she's going to go in jail for a long, long time. And it was one of the most satisfying moments. And I'm like, when I saw that, I'm like, all the crap I go through, all the threats I get, all the lawsuits, all the cancellations, it's all worth it. It's all worth it.
She messed with the wrong guy.
Yeah, she thought she poked the turtle, as we called it. And so I'm unwilling to be canceled. And if you're unwilling to be canceled, there might be a little sacrifice in it. There might be a little sacrifice. You might lose your job, and I understand not everybody's down for that. And I don't blame anybody who isn't down for that. I totally get it, because we got bills to pay, your kids need food, and you don't want to be a broke artist that sticks by his principles, whatever. But eventually, you got to do what the people of Lexington did, and you got to stand up and fight and say, I'm not going to be subjected to your tyranny anymore. So here I am today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Aidan, that was great. Do we have any questions for Aidan? Mary, did you have a question?
No, I just wondered why you were called Turtleboy. What?
Oh, because of this. So,
background,
so there's the statue in downtown
Yeah.
Worcester of a boy riding a turtle. We call it the Turtleboy statue, and it's kind of like the symbol of Worcester. And I'm like, when I was coming up for the name, I'm like, well, it's a Worcester blog, so everybody associates Worcester with Turtleboy. It's kind of catchy, and I'm like, I'm really glad I did, because it was either that or Word from the Woo, and I'm so glad I chose Turtleboy, because that's just not good.
What do you see as like your purpose or main goal? What do you hope to accomplish?
My main goal, I think, would just be to continue to expose corruption, continue to tell the stories that the mainstream media is, intentional. Like the Boston Globe, they covered up for Monica Cannon Grant for how many years? To tell those stories, to hold people accountable, to hold people like Rachel Rollins accountable, right? That whole story that we broke last year about her in the road rage incident, and I had the victim on my show, and I went on 𝗺𝗿𝗄𝗃 with it. And so I would say my goal would just be to continue to expose corruption, tell the stories that nobody else would tell, build the brand, get more people on my team, turn this into something that could really be a tool that can spread across the country, because there's no reason a Turtleboy just has to exist in Massachusetts. This stuff like this happened, I'm sure, in Topeka, Kansas, and Kansas City, Missouri, and you name it, all over the country. Stuff like this is probably happening. So we could have Turtleboys everywhere. We could franchise it, and so that's kind of my long-term goal.
One issue now with the conversion ban therapies is they not only want to take the power away from therapists, but they also want to go after religious people and parents. And no one can say anything against what they want to do to the teaching in the school system. Have you seen that in the schools?
Like, so you're saying that laws that say that you can't.
Like if you say someone is a boy, but he says he's a girl, and you say like, oh,
Gender identity.
I don't think that's right. If you're a a therapist or a religious leader or even a parent, you can no longer correct that.
Well, obviously, I'm definitely against that. And I would say it's not enough to just ban, like, it's not enough to just say, well, I'm against it. It's like we need actual laws that prevent, rules like that from existing in the first place. That under no circumstances will you ever tell a parent what they can and cannot say to their child. Under any circumstances can a school pull a child aside and talk to them about something without letting their parents know. That will not, that's what I mean by, I feel like old conservatives would just sat by and be like laissez-faire, whatever. Now it's like we need to be aggressive and we need to create laws that ban that from happening. There need to be stiff punishments. Like this Florida they call it the Don't Say Gay bill. It's a lie. Just completely fake news. Nothing is in there. And so what did DeSantis and his lovely press secretary, Christina Pushaw, do? They used my tactics. They canceled the left. They said, we're going to brand it the way we want to brand it. We're going to call this the anti-grooming bill. And if you have a problem with it, are you a groomer? Are you a pedophile? And it puts them on, because that's what it was. It didn't ban saying gay in school. It banned teaching second graders about transgenderism, right? That's ultimately what it did. If you have a problem with that, there's something wrong with you.
That's right.
And I'm not the problem. You're the weirdo.
Yeah.
So don't talk to me about that. I'm not falling for your tricks, commie. I know you. I know you too well. I know how you operate. And we're not playing your stupid games anymore. Go ahead.
What about the big lie about green energy? Somebody has to stand up and tell the people who are not necessarily technically savvy that this enormous Wizard of Oz thing has been pulled on them. And somebody has to pull the curtain aside and show them the little wizard fake guy in the corner. Because otherwise, that's going to destroy the country faster than all the rest of this stuff combined. Once you get to the point where you don't have electricity, the modern world disappears.
I think it'll, in my opinion, that the green energy thing, I don't consider that much of a threat because I think it will fail on its own. Because the second people have to start, paying, like people are all for, oh yeah, I'm all for saving the planet. Next thing you know, it's $10 a gallon for gas. Like, whoa. I don't care that much about the planet. Like, oh, take it easy.
But that's self-containing in a sense because of the big gap between the price of a Tesla and the price of a used Chevy.
Right.
But the idea that we can shut down all of our traditional generating plants and replace them with wind turbines that mostly chop up songbirds and solar arrays that do virtually nothing. That's going to destroy this, especially parts of the country where it gets cold in the winter time and things like that. We won't be able to survive. We'll be thrown back to this era of essentially subsistence agriculture level of lifestyle. The rest of it, they're talking about in Boston banning new construction that doesn't become all electric as the building.
So I'm against that,
Where's that
obviously.
electricity going to come?
I guess my answer to that is that, places like Boston, it's going to happen. And when I hear people from Boston complain about Michelle Wu and stuff like that, I'm like, dude, you choose to live in a communist city. Like, the solution of Boston is leaving Boston. You cannot win there. Like, Michelle Wu, she's popular. That's the problem. The problem isn't Michelle Wu. The problem is she got the majority of the votes. And she'll get it again because people there like her ideas. So unless you want to be governed by people like that, you don't have to stay there. You can move wherever you want. That's the beauty of this. It's a free country. You can get up and leave if you don't like the place. Come to Holden. We never had a mask mandate in Holden. We didn't have anything like that. The second this state, we weren't going to have it in our schools because I was leading a revolt and we weren't going to have it. And then one day, the state decided we were going to have it. And but the second the state lifted it, we were like, yep, no more masks for our kids. Boston, they're still wearing masks in schools. So I guess my answer to that is just, that's crazy. It's horrible. It's stupid. But it's going to exist in places where these people. So I would say that leaving a communist city like Boston isn't a, giving up. It's a tactical retreat. You're going to a place and make a red area redder. make a red area redder. That's what essentially is happening in places like Florida and Tennessee. They're getting redder by the day.
Yeah, Aidan, I appreciate you, man. Most everybody in here knows that I'm a preacher. Everybody knows that communism, Marxism is what's behind all this, and I kept hearing you share that. And are you familiar with our case, Shirtless versus the city of Boston, with the flag issue?
I don't, remind me. Refresh me.
Give him the lowdown. Give him the lowdown, Alan.
In front of City Hall, there's all these flagpoles, and they will let anyone who wants to fly a flag there. Communist China, whatever. So this one guy, this one organization, Camp Constitution.
Yeah, our organization.
Constitution.
You want to raise a Constitution flag?
They
On
want to
Constitution Day.
fly a flag with a cross on it. And for the first time, the city of Boston said, they've never turned anyone down in 90 years. They said, no, you can't fly that flag. So these people took the city of Boston to court. They lost.
They lost.
They lost at the next level. They lost the next level. Well, guess what?
We got to the Supreme Court.
Took the case.
Wow, how about that?
Supreme Court took the case.
And guess what? And guess what? You're probably going to win because of Donald Trump. Because Donald Trump pushed through 3 Supreme Court justices.
Even the ACLU, they're not on our side.
Right.
They even
I've been represented in court by the Rhode Island ACLU before.
So,
they're useful for free speech issues.
Exactly,
I'll tell you that much. They're
exactly,
still
exactly.
useful for free speech.
I have a staunch get in your face black conservative. And I told everybody here, I tell them all the time, listen, when it comes to all this Marxist, BLM, CRT nonsense, you have to put the patriotic black conservatives out front. Because that neutralizes the race column. See, so everybody here knows the way me and my wife roll. We don't put up with it nonsense. Yeah, no, I'm serious.
I like it. I like your attitude.
No. I'm 78 years old. Don't bring that mess to me. You see what I'm saying? And we're waiting for the Supreme Court to actually declare their ruling when the term ends, which will be in June. But once the term ends in June and they put out their decree or whatever they say, because I don't call it Supreme Court, I call it the High Court. Supreme Court's different.
Yeah, I honestly, on speech issues, the court is very good. Like, even Kagan and people like that, we've seen a lot of 9-0 decisions on free speech.
We're looking at even 7-2, 6-3, or 9-0. And then I told Alan, and I told all my people here, I'm gonna really, you think I'm aggressive now, I'm really gonna get in their face. I was gonna run for school board, but we only been in Lexington since May 2020. So we really wasn't prepared to come up against this Lexington machine here.
So I ran for school board in my town, and this is probably what, a 75-25 Biden town, I'm guessing? What percentage of the people?
Probably closer to 90.
Yeah, so
Only 9% Republican, but I don't know how many voted for Trump.
it's a steep one, right? It's a steep one. You're gonna have trouble. Whereas I'm in a town where it's a 60-40 Biden town. It's a little bit more doable. So I ran for school committee, and I ran on the issues, a lot of the things I talked about here today. And I didn't, 5,000 people in my town voted for Donald Trump, 700 voted for me. Because conservatives don't show up for local elections, but Democrats do. They do. They mobilize the machine. They are unwilling to give up any seat, no matter how big, no matter how small, because they realize the schools are very important. It's how they will indoctrinate the next generation of communists. And so they paid. I'm like, I'm going to win. I'm Turtleboy. I'm out here holding signs. Everybody knows me. Everybody's honking. I'm like, I was so cocky. I'm like, I got this thing in the bag. And then election day rolls in. I'm like, what? These 3 women? How the hell did they win? And it's not that they cheated or anything. It's that the Democratic Town Committee I found out they did a robocall to registered Democrats, and they just said, I don't know what was on the call, but I'm sure it was something to the effect of, Trump's coming to town. Turtleboy is Trump, and you need to get out of here, or Trump is going to take over your schools. And it works. And we need to do the same. Our local Republican committees need to mobilize the vote, no matter how minuscule it is. Water department, dog catcher, you name it, right? Get conservatives on the boards. We saw it with COVID. Boards of health controlled our lives, right? I didn't even know who was on the board of health before COVID. It turns out they have all this power over me I didn't realize they had. So you need to fight for the little things, the small municipal governments, because that really affects your life the most.
All right, one last question, then we're going to let Aidan go. Aidan, tell us, what is a ratchet?
So a ratchet, I was somebody that disregards the normal norms of civilized society, who sells their food stamps, thinks nothing of it on Facebook, uses bad language, doesn't care about, leeching off of other people, especially the government, doesn't mind hurting other people, treating them badly, thinks only about themselves, and just wears a flat-brimmed Chicago Bulls hat whenever possible. That's the best ring I could use to describe a
So,
Ratchis.
again, thank you, Aidan, for coming. If you want to support Aidan, you can subscribe to Turtleboy Daily News, or you can buy his swag like I
Yeah,
did.
on Amazon. Oh, yeah, yeah, anything. We got a store
So-
right on the website, or you could join Turtle Club or
So,
whatever you
If
want.
you'd be kind enough to
Yes, absolutely.
to autograph the book, I'm
Peace, guys.
passing it around. Thank you very much. That was great.